Yeah, love it. That's such a huge advantage. So Jacob, another question. So earlier, and you and I have had other discussions, but about like recent advancements, but also creative ways that businesses are using your six technology. And it could be from a securing environment. It could be monitoring. You mentioned some interesting ways people are monitoring their environments, or you mentioned something about how trucks, like how many large trucks are traveling through residential areas. Go ahead and go into some of those uses that are more, they might be fluffy, but they're still really cool ways that people are using your technology.
Yeah. Yeah. So surveillance nowadays, if we focus on that, because it's probably the largest area that we run for people, is surveillance can be used for security, whereas we are, protecting the assets of the business and things like that. So AI can be, and what we're working on right now is how do we find evidence of an incident faster, in a forensic manner. So after something happens, how do I not spend so much time looking through footage? So today we have tagging where, hey, I just want to see video when there was a human being present in that scene, right? So I want to go through and search just that. We're adding in more values to say, hey, there's a human, but I actually also heard he had on a green shirt and blue jeans. Just show me those gentlemen, for example. So those are evolvements we're making towards forensic security. There's also other use cases we have for smart cities, for example. So in our case,
Mhm.
we don't ever need servers. It's a camera, and as long as it has some type of connectivity, we're gonna tunnel home to the cloud, and we can put cameras anywhere now. We call this security anywhere. It's also actually kind of safety anywhere also. That's one big thing. So we can say, hey, if there's vehicles speeding, traveling too fast in a sensitive area, send out a real-time alert or log it and get metrics around that, and you're actually using AI to determine that there's a vehicle in the scene, as well as other like AI radar. You could actually apply radar not just to images and vision, like video, but actually to like a radar, for example, as well. So we get speed, rate of direction, things like that, where we can get alerting around that. And then, yeah, you're right. In the smart city case, we have a case where a very large city in the U.S. here wants to track when large commercial vehicles accidentally go down residential roads at a certain weight. It's really damaging to residential streets. They're not built the same way as the highways and that sort of thing are. So we can actually do vehicle counting. So if there's very large vehicles moving in a certain direction down a certain area. Now with the cloud, we can put a camera anywhere in a residential neighborhood and watch for not really security, right? That's not what I'm watching, but
Right.
for the routing logistics of traffic through my city, I need data around what types of vehicles are moving where and why and how, and what kind of adjustments can I make in time to route that traffic better. We can save cities millions of dollars just by the data from it. So there's
Mhm.
security, there's safety, and there's like logistics and operations as well. So there's countless use cases depending on the vertical.
Yeah, I love that. It's so interesting, and I think that's where AI gets pretty exciting, especially into the surveillance and access and cameras. And you mentioned this that before it was really used as surveillance. That's what you use it for. Now there are so many, I mean, for productivity and monitoring and even information, right? And every business and all of us, we run off of information that we can collaborate, we can get. So that's super important. Now, speaking of that information, I think, and it goes along with our security and how you're securing the devices, which you answered very articulately. What about all this data is going to the cloud? All this data, of course, and not data, but video, sound, all this stuff is going in the cloud. What are some ways that you guys are protecting that data in your database and in those cloud environments?
Yeah, so that's a long conversation, but we actually have yeah, Philip, I guess you'd call it a product. But we have something called our validator app, for example. So this is just one example to answer your question, Ben. How do we prove authenticity of footage from the minute it leaves the camera to the minute it shows up in court, perhaps,
Oh,
right? You can get
right.
some sneaky lawyers that will challenge the validity. Well, who handled it and all these kind of things. So we can actually prove chain of custody that when video evidence left the camera, went to the cloud, was stored, and then was exported, that the clip that they have in court is actually the original event that happened. So you can follow that chain of custody. So yes, we use TLS on all traffic that's in transit, also encrypting traffic at rest as well. But then also doing like a digital watermark via things like checksums to make sure that we have integrity of that data. It hasn't been tampered with as well is really important. And then at all levels, using things like object locks in cloud storage to make sure that nobody can easily tamper with footage in the first place.
Mhm.
Literally use technology to lock that evidence so it can't be tampered with in the first place, and then proving that throughout that chain.
Great. And I know, like you said, it's a much larger conversation, but obviously when we're talking about security, you guys have YourSix has a cybersecurity and a security based approach, and that goes from protecting the data, protecting the customer, protecting the environment, which I think is very, I mean, to me, it's exciting. Me having more of a security type of background and cybersecurity background, I think this stands out. It really does stand out. So, Phillip, can you share a case study? I know that I've been working a lot with the automotive industry and with car dealerships. Do you have a particular case study or anything that stands out on helping auto dealers?
Yeah, I mean, during, and it really, it just depends. It's typically one of the biggest ones lately has been the theft of catalytic converters, right? You've got people coming in all sorts of hours trying
Yeah,
to, cut off the certain parts of the car, whatever part, right?
yeah.
Um, and being able to respond to that. Now, there's a couple different ways, right? There's the proactive stop it before it really starts to take place. Person is detected, automated talk down to tell the individual over an IP speaker to leave the premises you need to go, or law enforcement will be deployed. At the
Hmm.
same time, platform sends a notification to even a central monitoring station or to a user of the platform, telling them, hey, this is the person. Central monitoring station can validate that event and then continue to talk down. Person who receives it via push mobile notification or something like that can actually view the footage and verify whether it's a valid event or not also. Um, but this ability to really kind of stop it before it takes place, and then afterwards you're going to have recorded footage in more than one location. So that's been a really really common one. You also have to be very aware of different things that happen with with car dealerships, right? You've got people shop a lot on Sundays, right? So it's a closed time of day for the shop, but there's a lot of people on premise, right? And so you still need video of those people and make sure nothing was destroyed, broken, or anything like that. And so um, that's actually a really, really big one for us, and it pretty easy to stick one of those cameras. Whether it's LTE signal or a wireless point-to-point
Hmm.
access point out in the middle of a big, large lot somewhere. Very easy to make that connection, low bandwidth requirements, and you can do things like record to the camera itself and only push events to the cloud. So you're really keeping down the requirements from the actual hardware and the piece of the device that may be mounted out in a parking lot somewhere. So
Nice. It sounds like you guys have a lot of alerts, but also a lot of ways to be proactive about the alert so that, I mean, obviously in cybersecurity you have this thing that's alert fatigue, right, where you get so many notifications that finally you're like, forget it, like it's too much to even follow. It seems like you guys have some mechanisms and some things put into place that prevent you from getting too many alerts so that you're only having to deal with what is relevant and what needs to be dealt with. Is that an accurate
oh yeah, I mean,
assumption?
yeah, think about it. If you got 50 alerts and there's one in the middle that's actually when it matters, it's like crying wolf a bunch, right? You're
Yeah.
eventually just going to just ignore them. And so what we do is with the Axis analytics, you typically what somebody will do is even if they're only recording on motion, they're not just sending notifications every time motion takes place, right? I don't need to know every time the a flag blows or a bush moves over to the side. Now, I prefer footage of everything, right? That's good to have all the footage, but I only want to know when a person's detected or a vehicle's detected, something that actually matters, right?
Yeah.
And so really properly utilizing the Axis analytics reduces those false alarms significantly, right? That really allows both the user, the central stations, law enforcement downstream, everybody to properly respond to these types of events because without being able to really validate them, it is fatigue and it trickles all the way down. Like even like I said, the law enforcement, right? Law enforcement
Yeah.
responds to the same place 50 times by the 51st time, they're kind of like,
Right.
go a little bit slower this time, right? So
Right.
yeah, utilizing the analytics is a very, very big piece of it to really, maintain the fact that if you get a notification, that means something happened. It's visual intelligence.
Nice. Awesome. So Jacob, I want to take us home here, but what advice would you give to businesses that are looking to, of course, enhance their security infrastructure, but move from an on-prem to a more agile, cloud-based security system? What's some advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, just, do a lot of research around ethics of the vendors you're working with, right? Look, what is their track record? What kind of possible breaches have they or have they not been a part of in the past? That might be a sign of, foundational underlying cultural issues. Second, don't ever purchase a solution, whereas if you stop paying a license fee, the hardware stops working, right? When I buy a Dell laptop, Dell doesn't shut it off if I stop paying them for support, right? Maybe they'll discontinue some patching or whatnot, but you have the ability to own the hardware that you have. Um, and then really be very aware of how you're going to scale your business as it adapts. In the age of AI, things change quickly. And frankly, being more cloud centric allows you to bring in more tools as your business adapts. So um, AI can be used again on the edge, which is in the camera in our case, or out in the cloud. Don't rack and stack servers that are going to really slow you down on how you approach AI needs for your business as technology and times change and business changes. I'd keep those things very open. Make sure you can cover your assets wherever they need to be and avoid heavy capital expenses in server hardware in our space is critical.
Awesome. Great advice. And Jacob and Phillip, thank you for joining me. I'm definitely excited. I think this is a new frontier in AI. It's a new frontier in physical security, and it's going to be exciting to see how this transforms over the next 3 to 5 years or even longer. And I definitely look forward to continuing to work with you and your team. It's been great so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on, Ben. Appreciate it.